Good afternoon, everybody. Let me move this a bit. Today's press conference is to announce my new cabinet lineup. You've got the details, you've got the press statement. Let me add a few comments and then I can take some questions. My first point is that it's an epochal change because MM and SM are leaving the cabinet. Last Saturday, they had announced their intention, and this is the outcome. MM and SM have dedicated their lives to Singapore, building the nation, raising living standards, and enabling future generations to enjoy a better life in a transformed Singapore. Now they've decided that it's time for them to step down and to leave it to me and my team of younger ministers to take Singapore forward into the future. I've thought this over carefully over the last 5 days and decided to accept their decision. 4 days. I've decided to accept their decision. I thank them for all that they have done, not just on my own behalf, but on behalf of all the people of Singapore. MM's contributions, of course, are too large to list here, and MM's contributions too, building on what MM had done and helping Singapore to shift gears and adapt to a different period and to a different hand. And I personally owe a great deal to SM Go, because he brought me into politics and he was the one who guided and mentored me for all these many years. I'm keen to not leave their accumulated experience and wisdom fallow, but to tap it. And therefore, we will be appointing Mr. Lee Kuan Yew to be Senior Advisor to GIC, and Mr. Goh Chok Tong to be Senior Advisor to MAS. And Mr. Goh will also have the honorary title of Emeritus Senior Minister. For those of you who are not familiar, Emeritus means that the person is retired, but he keeps as an honorary title, the title which he held immediately before his retirement. So in Mr. Goh's case, you're Senior Minister, so is the Emeritus SM. I had made the same offer to Mr. Lee, but Mr. Lee said, well, I don't need that. It's not necessary. But beyond being Senior Advisors and Emeritus SM, I'm confident that they'll continue to cultivate their extensive network of ties abroad to Singapore's advantage. Because these are networks and links and contacts which take many years to build up and which we should make the maximum of. Several ministers are retiring this round, apart from SM and MM. DPM Wong Kan Seng, Minister Mabautan, and Minister Raymond Lim will retire from the cabinet. All three of them served in challenging appointments and have made many valuable contributions. They had expressed a desire to step down earlier. I had asked them to stay on and to help me to fight the elections. And now that these elections have been fought and won, they've reiterated that they didn't wish to be reappointed. And I've agreed, and I would like to put on record my thanks for all their many contributions. We now have a fresh lineup in cabinet. It's a completely new lineup. It's a fresh slate after a watershed election. And the cabinet will be reviewing our policies and approaches, existing ones as well as coming up with new ones, and working hard to engage a new generation of Singaporeans in order to take Singapore forward in a more complex environment. More complex externally, and I think more complex within Singapore too. I've gone for a comprehensive reshuffle, not just incremental changes. So out of 14 ministries, 11 will have new ministers in charge. And the ministers will have a free hand to rethink and reshape policies. I'm appointing 2 DPMs. Teo Chee Hean will continue to be DPM and also Coordinating Minister for National Security. And in my absence, he will be the acting PM. I'm also promoting Tharman to be Deputy Prime Minister, And he will primarily be coordinating economic and social policy. This is in addition to his portfolios, where he continues in finance, and he will also be covering the Ministry of Manpower. There are several other promotions. Iswaran is being promoted to full minister in PMO, and he'll be second minister in MTI and Ministry of Home Affairs. Heng Chee Hao has been promoted from MOS to Senior Minister of State. He continues in NTUC. And Teo Salak has been promoted from Senior Parsec to MOS. In addition, I have two promotions from the backbenches. Halimah Yaakob will become MOS in MCYS, and Josephine Teo will become MOS in both finance and transport. I'm appointing several office holders from the new MPs. Heng Swee Keat will be Minister for Education. Chan Chun Sing will be Acting Minister for MCYS, as well as Minister of State in MICA. And three more new MPs, Tan Chuan Jin, Lawrence Wong, and Sim An, will come in as MOSs or Senior Palsecs. It's a faster pace than normal, but I decided to bring them in early and test them out quickly because I think there's urgency in the task of preparing for leadership succession, as I've explained many times before. This is the cabinet at the beginning of this term of government. I will do a midterm review and make further changes as the new team shakes down and as people establish themselves. And I expect to review the cabinet appointments within the next 2 years. Today, my focus is on the new cabinet. There are many other issues, broad ones, important ones. We'll deal with them later, beginning with my swearing-in speech on Saturday. Take questions. Saad?
Portfolios in finance and in MOM. Do you think it's not a heavier burden, or is this just interim, or while you prepare?
I hope it will be an interim arrangement. I do not expect this to. I hope this will not last too long. As the new MOSs prove themselves, I hope to be able to put them in charge of ministries. That's why I'm intending to review this list within 2 years. But MOM is a difficult ministry. Because it's not just policies, but you have to deal with the unions, you have to deal with the employers, you have many interfaces with the public, and therefore we thought it's safer that I have Tharman cover it for the time being. But he has a strong team in MOM, and I think wherever possible he'll delegate to the MOSs there and oversee what they're doing rather than do it himself. Yes, Ramesh?
PM, you have made Mr. Heng Swee Keat a full minister and MG Chan as acting minister. What are you looking out for in these new candidates who have put them into office?
What am I looking out for? Proven performance and potential, as well as political touch. So I'm putting them in deep, at the deep end. It's not easy to come in and become a minister, whether acting or full, but I believe they can do it, and I'm testing them out. Yes, Shu Chin?
PM, sir. I wonder if you have started the post-mortem for the PAP, and how is this post-mortem affecting this cabinet?
We have started the process. I don't know how far we have progressed because it's only 10 days after the elections, or 12 days after the elections. But this has been done in parallel. This time, Mr. Khaw Boon Wan is chairing the post-mortem. Yes?
Sir, how do you see the appointment of Dr. Yaakob now in MICA, and then Halimah Yaakob promoted to MOS, and Dr. Maliki now is also SPS for defense. How do you see this promotion of?
I think these reflect our assessments of what they are able to do, which is more than they have, which is beyond what they have been doing so far, because we think they've done well. And these are important places to go, because in MICA, I don't have to tell you, whether old media or new media, this is a very challenging environment. besides the issues to do with the IT industry and telecoms and the arts scene. But the media and new media, I think, is a very is posing. We have to not just deal with challenges, but understand them and understand how we can get our message across, and exploit them to our advantage, or use them to our advantage. So that's a very important job. Halima and MCYS, I think MCYS is one of the areas where we have to do reviews, because we have to be concerned with our social safety nets. And Halima, I think, has the right background and the right empathy and personal commitment to helping people, that I think she'll do a good job here. Maliki has done a very good job in MND, and we think that we would like to add him into the defense team. I'm sure he'll be able to make contributions, especially dealing with NS men and NS issues. Yes.
PM Palani from Tamil Marasu. Touching on Minister Shanmugam as well as Minister Iswaran's role in foreign affairs law, home affairs and trade and industry. Firstly, Mr. Shanmugam's role as the new foreign minister, filling the shoes of Mr. George Sheo,
yes,
portray Singapore's image in the international arena. Could you please elaborate on that, as well as Mr. Iswaran's new portfolio at home affairs? Thank you.
Well, it's a new area for Shanmugam. I mean, he has just gone into Ministry of Home Affairs, but I have a situation. I have to fill a vacancy in MFA. George Sheo has left very big shoes to fill, and I've decided to put Shanmugam there, and I think he will dive in and he will learn the job. I have put Iswaran as Second Minister in MTI as well as in Home Affairs. Both of these are very big ministries. MTI, the span of responsibility is very wide. There's an international aspect, the FTAs, the regional cooperation, our international meetings which we have to attend. And then there's a domestic aspect, dealing with our local industries, dealing with our stat boards, dealing with our projects like F1 or IR. Iswaran has been handling these in MTI. He's been doing it well, and I think he deserves a promotion. In MHA, another very big ministry with a wide range of responsibilities, whether it's home affairs, or whether it's a home team, or whether it's terrorism, or whether it's administering the population issues. Teo Chee Hean will be the minister, but he's the DPM, and I think I'm going to use him for many other things. And I expect him to work with Iswaran and to give Iswaran very significant responsibilities in the Ministry of Home Affairs. You want to say anything?
I look forward to working with Iswaran. I've worked with him in cabinet. He's got a very sharp mind, good policy mind, and he's able to look into many issues in deep detail and also see to the implementation of many of these policies. I look forward to working with him.
Yes.
总理，我是新传媒新闻的起源，我想请问您，就是说，我们看到这个名单其实跟改变是相当大的。那您在决定您的内阁人选的时候，你是希望给新加坡人什么样的一个想法，或者是你的想要达到什么样的目的呢？
我要传达的讯息是，我们现在是一个新的时代、新的局势，我们有一个新的领导班子来应付未来的挑战。旧人退下来不少，尤其是两位执政卸任了，所以我们有很多内阁里有不少有经验的老将都退下来了。那我们引进来的新人，我看他们有魄力、有潜能、有热忱、有办事能力。那我希望他们在不久的时间里会累积经验，会把新加坡带到一个新的境界里。The question is, what is the signal from this cabinet? My answer is, it's a completely new cabinet. We have many very experienced people have retired from the old team. Not just MM and SM, but also Ma Bao Tan, Wong Kan Seng, Jayakumar, Lim Boon Heng. These are people who, between them, have not only many years of experience, but also have that feel and judgment acquired from handling repeated crises and challenges. And even when they are not hands-on, their view, their comments, their suggestions have been very helpful to me as PM in seeing things from a different perspective and avoiding pitfalls which we might otherwise run into. But we are in a new situation. We need a new lineup, and this is a fresh lineup. I've got old faces all shuffled, some of the original faces all shuffled, quite a number of new faces brought in, integrated into the team. It's a fresh team which can take a fresh look at problems and approach the future with a clean slate. What do we need to do now? What do we need to change now? And we hope that over time, this group will be able to acquire the same experience and the same feel as the older team has. It's not all new people, because it's a combination of existing ministers and some new ones. I think I have 11 present ministers staying. I'm not sure. I have a good number of the existing ministers staying, and some new ones come in. So it's a combination of experience and freshness, but we are prepared to look at everything de novo, from scratch.
Hi, Lee Kiang from Zhao Bao. I have two questions. The first is a follow-up on Minister George Yeo. Could you share with us, is he going to continue to work with the government in any way? And the second question will be the three DPM Wong, Minister Ma Bao Tan, and Minister Raymond Lim will be retiring from Cabinet. People may wonder that it's got to do with the results that they've gotten over general election. Would you like to clarify if it's linked, any link at all?
Well, Minister George Yeo he's one of our best foreign ministers, as you know, and his loss is a grievous one, and I would like to tap him in whatever way I can, and I will be discussing with him how we can best do this. The ministers who are leaving, as I said, they had asked to leave even before the election, and I had held them back. After the election, I agreed to let them go. Yes, Shane.
I have two questions. The first is, can you place this cabinet in the context of the transition to the fourth generation leadership? And the second one is that this is a much smaller cabinet. There are 15, down from 21.
Yes.
Looking ahead, is this the optimal size that you'll be looking at in terms of a closer-knit cabinet?
It's a transition cabinet on the way to the fourth generation leadership. The fourth generation leadership is one where I'm not the PM. And I'm working towards that with all the dispatch which I can, but I need we need to give the MOSs and the new ministers exposure, experience, and my target is 2020, and I'm still aiming for that. What's your second question? The size of the cabinet. I think it's difficult to say. It depends on what each member brings, and this is much smaller than the previous cabinet. But if I have more experienced people over time, if I can reinforce it with a few more, it doesn't mean I will do a one-for-one exchange, because if the more experienced ones are still have still contributions to make, I will be able to deploy them in other roles. It's like the old cabinet. I mean, look at Professor Jayakumar. We called him a range of titles. He was minister, then he was DPM, then he was senior minister. But whatever title you gave him, he had a lot of things to do. And as senior minister, he was covering climate change. He was covering our negotiations on the POA. He was doing Pedra Branca. If I have another person like Jayakumar, I will keep him like I kept Professor Jayakumar. But that's counting chickens. Yes, Daud.
PM, pelantikan bagi para EP Melayu nampaknya begitu murah hati dan begitu bersejarah sekali ya, khususnya pelantikan bagi MINDEF, Encik Maliki di MINDEF dan Encik Halimah sebagai wanita pertama yang menjawat jawatan Menteri Negara ya. Ini mungkin dilihat sebagai cuba untuk memuaskan hati masyarakat Melayu yang sudah lama ya meminta pelantikan yang sedemikian. Mungkin apakah motivasi yang paling penting yang anda terapkan dalam pelantikan tersebut?
Saya tidak fikir itu motivasi kita. Kita buat begini kerana kita yakin bahawa menteri-menteri ini dapat membuat sumbangan mereka di tempat yang kita lantik mereka, maupun di MCYS atau di MINDEF. Saya tahu Cik Halimah sangat sangat fokus atas perkara-perkara dan masalah-masalah yang membabit keluarga-keluarga yang miskin. Dan di MCYS kita harap meneliti semula dasar-dasar kita dan apa yang kita boleh buat untuk menolong keluarga-keluarga yang ada masalah. Jadi saya fikir Cik Halimah di MCYS ada sumbangannya yang besar. Dan Cik Maliki juga kita lantik dia jadi senior palsec di MINDEF kerana di MINDEF ada banyak perkara-perkara yang berkenaan dengan NSMN, dan saya fikir Encik Maliki boleh menanganinya dengan berkesan. You want to say anything about Maliki in MINDEF?
Ya, saya sudah bekerja dengan Encik Maliki di MINDEF GPC Defence dan Foreign Affairs selama beberapa tahun, dan dia berkhidmat dengan dedikasi yang sungguh-sungguh.
Yes. 听到大声点啊！
我是联合早报的能端，有2个问题都是和新人有关的。就是我们看到在教育部您委任了一个全新的一个部长，而且是这次的新的候选人，还有就是2个一个 Senior Polsec， 还有一个 Minister of State 黄循才跟沈颖都是新人，所以想请问为什么会有这么大的变动？然后第2个问题就是我们也看到陈振声现在是MCYS 的代部长，所以我不知道为什么会他是作为一个新人，而且之前也不是在公务员服务了太久，所以为什么他这么快的就可以进入到这个职位？
首先教育部都换了新人，没有什么特殊的意义，主要的人物是部长。那部长换了之后，其他因为我们整个团队的调动，所以不得已，那么教育部我们政务部长跟次长都换了。但是其实政务次长中，哈瓦西以前曾经在教育部的，所以他是有经验的，不是全新的一个人物。至于张尊兴成为社区发展部的 MCYS 的代部长，这个是我们必须做的选择，因为好几个新人，那我有一个代部长，我有一个部长的职位，所以我们仔细考虑之后，我们觉得我们从整体来说，最好的选择是把张尊兴委任成为代部长。我相信他虽然是从国防部来的，可是在国防部里，他和武装部队的人员和我们国民服役人员有不少的接触，所以也了解一般新加坡人民的情况和思想。那在 MCYS 当部长，我看这个背景是有好处的，有价值的。Yeah, the question was why we changed everybody in education, and then secondly why I put Chan Chun Sing into MCYS even though he wasn't even a civil servant. So I said, well, in education, I didn't want to change everybody, but I had changed the ministers. I had to change a minister, and it so happened that when I shuffled the other ministers of state and PALSECs, the people who were in MOE had to move. But Hawazi is back in MOE, and he's not there for the first time. So there is some continuity. And Sri Kat has also served in MOE before, although as a civil servant in a junior capacity. In fact, he served under Tharman when Tharman was a civil servant in MOE. So he's not completely new. And I think he has interest in education matters. As for Chan Chun Sing being acting minister in MCYS, I had one ministry post to fill, and I looked at the new names coming in, and we discussed this and decided that we would appoint Chan Chun Sing to this. He's not been in a ministry as a civil servant, but he's been in the SAF. But in the SAF, he has had to deal with NS men and a broad range of backgrounds. And dealing with NS men, you understand what motivates Singaporeans, what they are preoccupied with, what some of their problems are. And I think this background would be useful to him in MCYS.
我是我报的洪义金。我的问题是，这一次完全没有女部长，然后现任的那个两位高级政务部长跟政务部长都没有升级。请你就这一点发言好吗？
我们没有一个固打，不过当我们有好的人选的时候，当时机成熟了，我们就会把他们升到部长级。那这一次没有我们没有这么做，可是以后当然还有这么做的可能性。A question was, why is there no lady minister? So my answer is, well, there's no quota, but when we have a suitable person, we will promote her to be a minister or him. And at this time, we did not do so. We brought in several female ministers of state, but in future, I'm sure that the opportunity will come and we will be able to do so.
Can you comment on why was Grace Fu and Amy Koh transferred to the various ministries?
It's because of my overall arrangements. I mean, I have Grace Fu is now in Muir and Mika. I think Mika particularly, it is valuable to have somebody like Grace with a Chinese language background who will be able to deal with, who will be able to engage the arts groups who are with the Chinese arts groups, and also deal with the Chinese media and have a feel for them and what's happening. As for Amy in Ministry of Health, she's also in REACH, and I think she has a concern for people and their problems. And health is one of those areas where we will be looking at our policies and seeing what more we need to do. And I think she's a good fit there. Yes, Lydia?
From Straits Times. You've appointed new chiefs of 11 out of the 14 ministries, and in your statement you said that the ministers will have a free hand to rethink and reshape policies.
Yes.
So could I ask you what kind of rethinking and reshaping you would like to see from the new ministers?
We will save that for another day. But basically, we want the policies to be responsive, to address real problems which Singaporeans have, at the same time be policies which will be sound and which over the long term will deliver results and a better life for Singapore, whether it's housing, whether it's healthcare, whether it's a better public transport system, whether it's a better social safety net, which doesn't undermine the will for people to work and achieve. These are trade-offs and judgments, not just policy judgments, but political judgments, which the ministers will have to make.
Could you elaborate a little bit about what you see as some of the challenges that ministers might face in this new environment? In MM and SM's statement, they talked about a more difficult and complex situation going forward.
I think people want to be engaged more. They want to know what the government is doing. They want to understand why the government is doing this. We also would like to encourage people to come forward with ideas of constructive ideas on what we can do and how they can participate to make Singapore better. So engaging them systematically and taking these many views into account and harmonizing them to the extent possible in order to come up with a coherent policy which people will support and accept. I think that's not just a matter of writing a paper, but a lot of groundwork and political work and engagement. And that's one of the challenges which the ministers will have to make. And also managing expectations, because we would like to solve the major problems which face Singaporeans, but at the same time, human societies are such that you always have new problems arise and old problems are solved, and we have to understand this and accept that recognize when we are making progress, and accept that some things maybe I can't solve today, may have to wait till tomorrow or even a little bit longer. Yes?
Can I just find out, you've appointed Khaw Boon Wan as the new Minister for National Development,
Yes.
and housing remains a very hot topic right
Yes.
now. So can you explain your decision for putting Minister Khaw in National Development, and also what you hope to see him achieve, especially when we talk about reshaping and rethinking policies?
Well, he will have to review the housing policies, and HDB is a large part of it, but it's not just HDB, because also private housing also is affected by government policies. Khaw Boon Wan has done a very good job in the Ministry of Health. He's been there, I think, 8 years, since 2003. And I asked him whether he would go to MND. He says yes, he volunteers for the job. So I think that's the right attitude to go into a very difficult post. And I'm backing him up with a strong team.
May I say something?
Yes.
So I think just to back up what the PM has said, I think the ministers are keen to go into these new portfolios. It's an issue not just of reviewing policies, but it's also an issue of engaging and looking for views, connecting with all segments of society. And basically the objective which we're trying to achieve is to reach out to people, listen to what they want, and try and build the type of Singapore that they want and which we can all be proud of. That takes work. It doesn't mean that we will be able to satisfy everyone and be able to do everything that everyone wants. But we hope that at the end of the process that people will be able to accept that the policies which we are going to move forward with are policies which are for the good of Singapore and Singaporeans, and that even if they don't get exactly what they want, that at least their views have been taken into account and they understand why we're moving along in a particular direction. And I think the ministers are all keen to do this.
Yes.
I'm Chi Kong from Today. 2 questions. As you have said, the cabinet changes are quite uncharacteristic of the way PAP usually does things in terms of cabinet changes. Is there a case to be made that it could be a knee-jerk reaction or overreaction to the GE results, and how do we ensure the continuity of policies that have been sound? Second question, regarding the decision by Mr. Lee Kuan Yew and Mr. Goh Chok Tong to step down, were they made after GE? And if so, can we conclude that it was made in relation to the results, and specifically that comments which some people feel that could have cost the PAP some votes?
Well, I think this is a cabinet which we have arranged a lineup after the elections. Certainly the outcome of the elections affected my thinking in deciding how to make this cabinet. I wanted a fresh start, and that's why I've gone for a radical change. There is a significant continuity with the previous cabinet in terms of the key members who are involved. I mean, Tharman and Teo Chee Hean have worked with me for quite many years, and so have a good number of the ministers who are continuing. So it's a combination of continuity and change, but it's a fresh presentation and a fresh lineup, and we're going to take a fresh approach. As for MM and SM's statement, I think they clearly made the decision after the elections, but I do not think it is because of the comments which MM made. I mean, I do not believe. I believe that MM's comments were negatively received by a significant number of Singaporeans, but I do not believe that they determine the election outcome. And I do not believe that is the reason. I know that is not the reason why they made this move. They made this move because, as they said, we are going forward into a new and more challenging environment, and it's best for a new team to take Singapore forward. Yes?
Can we have the two DPMs to share their thoughts on their new portfolio and their appointments?
Chee Hean, Home Affairs.
Well, first of all, for this cabinet, it's a clear transition to a third generation leadership, with the beginnings of the fourth generation leadership taking responsibility and finding their ground. The first and second generation leaders have laid the foundation for modern Singapore, and there's this question of whether or not we ought to continue with policies that are good. I think that in the review, we will also remember the key principles that the first and second generation left for us in building the modern, successful Singapore, an outstanding and exceptional country, which I think we're also proud of. So we have to maintain those key fundamentals that have helped us to survive and to succeed. There's much work to be done, I think, in all the ministries. I look forward certainly to the new responsibilities that the PM has entrusted me with, coordinating Minister for National Security, looking after a number of the key inter-ministry areas like population and also climate change. And also the Ministry of Home Affairs is a very large ministry, important ministry with complex issues which affect everyone's lives. I look forward to this new challenge and to working with the teams in the various departments and also with the home team in the Ministry of Home Affairs.
Tharman? Well, if I could perhaps respond to one of the earlier questions about whether this is a reaction, whether the composition of the team and our attitude to policy is a reaction to the GE. We obviously take lessons from the GE, and it will be foolish not to study what happened, how people responded, and think through what it implies for both the PAP as well as government. But this is basically a positive and forward-looking agenda that we are embarked upon. And the freshness of the team, I think, is a plus in moving into this new terrain, a society that's evolved, an economy that's evolving, and an international environment that is frankly far more complex. Having a new team has some disadvantages because you lose some experience, but it also brings some pluses. Individual ministers who are willing to relook policy parameters, look at things afresh, that's a real plus. But it's a positive, forward-looking agenda. How do we make Singapore a better place 10 years from now for all Singaporeans? The PAP manifesto laid out the major planks, but each of those planks requires a lot of work, a lot of refinement, and a lot of not just following through what we said we will do, but listening to the ground, talking to different groups of people, and making sure especially, and I'd perhaps place emphasis on this, making sure especially that we look out for people who fall between the cracks of eligibility criteria, people who seem to be doing okay but are dissatisfied in one aspect or another of their lives. I think we are dealing quite ambitiously with the poor in Singapore compared to many other places. Still can improve though. We need a lot more support networks on the ground, social workers who are able to tell who needs more care and who needs more of a push to get a job and to be responsible for their families. We need much better coordination in how we help people on the ground, not just one ministry and another, but government working together. And I think we need to do a lot more for re-engaging with the middle class. You can call it a sandwich group, but that's just a phrase. It's the majority of Singaporeans who have pride in themselves as Singaporeans and who have some areas of dissatisfaction that we have to deal with head on. The middle class is basically mainstream Singapore, and we've got to re-engage with them. The majority voted for the PAP, but voting for the PAP doesn't mean you agree entirely with the PAP. And it's a class that requires engaging with, listening to, and developing a new set of bonds going forward. But it's a positive, forward-looking agenda and not a reaction to what happened in the GE.
Yes, Pale.
Yeah, PM, two questions. One, there is news that the PM Tharman name is being mentioned as the next IMF chief. So I don't know how far it's true, but with the new positions, can you please enlighten me on that? And secondly, have you decided who is the next Speaker of Parliament?
I have not heard about the next IMF chief. Are you going there?
Well, fortunately, the new cabinet has been announced, so that puts paid to any such rumors.
I haven't decided who will be the new speaker. Okay, last question.
Can I say something about MINDEF as well?
Yes.
Well, with regard, you asked me about the ministries which I'm going to. I'd also like to say something about the ministries which I came from, and particularly the Ministry of Defence. Ministry of Defence is a key ministry in Singapore. I've had the privilege of working with many fine people in the Ministry of Defence over many years. I, in fact, had asked the Prime Minister then to send me a strong second minister in Dr. Ng Eng Hen to be the second minister in the Ministry of Defence, with a view to having somebody to test ideas with when I was the Ministry of Defence, and also with a view to having him take over. I've always run the Ministry of Defence in a way in which I've told my people it must be possible for you to run the Ministry of Defence with a minister who has not served previously for long periods of time in the SAF. And they understand that fully, and that's the way that we've run the Ministry of Defence. And I'm confident that the SAF and our defence will be in good hands with Dr. Ng.
Last question. Lee Hong? Okay, go first and Lee Hong.
PM, I'm Yuan from Business Times. Can I ask, with MM and SM now stepping down and you have appointed them as senior advisors, what sort of role, more active role do you hope they will play at GIC and MAS, and will they also remain as chairman of?
No, they will not remain as chairman. At MAS, Tharman will be taking over as chairman. At GIC, I will be taking over as chairman. It's an honorary title. It doesn't mean he's in cabinet. He's not in cabinet. It means he has retired, but it's just an emeritus title to recognize his contributions and to signify our respect and our regard for him. So we call him the Emeritus Senior Minister. Sorry? Well, for the time being they are here. Longer term, we have not made. We will think about the arrangements. We have not thought about that yet.
PM, did you make a similar offer to Professor Jayakumar?
No, I did not. All right. Thank you very much.